Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. When I first looked at the YouTube community guidelines, I honestly thought it was just dry legal fine print, like the stuff you just scroll past to hit accept. But as we dive into this source material together, it turns out it's actually a fundamental digital safety framework, especially for your science classroom. If you're working on a master's level science teaching assignment, these rules are literally the blueprint that transforms raw internet content into a safe, reliable pedagogy. So here is our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with why these rules matter, then decode the policy areas, dive into what's called the EDSA context exception, break down enforcement and strikes, look at some practical classroom applications, and wrap up with some critical reflection. Let's jump right in.
All right, Section 1, Why YouTube Rules Matter.
Let's be real for a second. The internet can often feel like the Wild West. Without some kind of structure, just bringing it straight into your classroom is a huge risk. In science teaching, multimedia is really only powerful when it is accurate, safe, and used responsibly. So think of these guidelines like that shield on the screen. They act as a protective barrier around your learners, actively reducing their exposure to harmful, misleading, or just flat-out inappropriate content while they're trying to learn.
The big mental shift we need to make here is reframing how we actually view these rules. They aren't just annoying platform restrictions. For a pre-service or master's level educator, these guidelines equal pedagogical, ethical, and safety standards. They help us develop our students' digital citizenship, teaching them that participating online requires respect and critical judgment. And on a practical level, they give you, the teacher, a clear set of criteria for making decisions before you ever hit play in your classroom.
Moving on to Section 2, Decoding the Policy Areas.
Let's look at what is actually restricted out there. YouTube chunks its guidelines into these main categories to tackle both harmful content and harmful behavior. You've got rules against spam, sensitive content, which includes absolute non-negotiables like child safety, violent or dangerous acts, and the promotion of regulated goods. But I really want to highlight that last point for us science educators: misinformation. When you're teaching real-world, fact-based topics, the misinformation policy is your first line of defense against pseudoscience sneaking into your lesson. Because honestly, we all know how fast a random video claiming the Earth is flat can completely derail a physics class.
And please, don't fall into the trap of thinking these rules only apply to the actual video footage. No way. The rules apply everywhere. That means the comment section, where a lot of class discussion might actually happen, the external links in the descriptions, and even the visual framing used in thumbnails. The whole shebang has to align with these safety standards.
Okay, Section 3, the EDSA context exception.
Now, as science teachers, you might be sitting there thinking, wait a minute, sometimes science is dangerous or a little graphic. And you're right. That's exactly where EDSA comes into play. It stands for Educational, Documentary, Scientific, or Artistic Context. YouTube actually recognizes that some content that might normally break the rules, like footage of a medical procedure or a massive destructive chemical reaction, has immense public interest value. But listen closely to this. EDSA explains why context matters. It is absolutely not a free pass to just break the rules. Let's compare what strengthens this exception versus what weakens it. Content stays up if it provides basic facts, a clear learning purpose, and responsible framing. It gets yanked down if it relies on shock value, sensational titles, or misleading claims. So for instance, a video showing a dangerous chemical hazard has to explain exactly what is happening, what safety principles are in play, and what the core scientific takeaway is. A great way to do this is to actually insert the subtitle inside the video itself to reinforce the learning. If it's just a random explosion set to heavy metal music with a clickbait title, that completely weakens the EDSA context and risks getting the video removed.
Think of context as the ultimate bridge. It's literally the only thing that transforms intense, raw reality captured on a camera into an actual, protected, scientific teaching tool. The context you provide as the educator is what connects the complex scientific equipment in the lab straight to the minds of your students.
Next up, Section 4, Enforcement and Strikes.
If you're assigning multimedia projects where your students are actually uploading their own work, they really need to understand accountability. YouTube enforces its rules through this escalating timeline. It kicks off with a warning for a first violation, and creators can actually take an optional policy training course here. But if rules are broken again, boom, first strike. That restricts posting for a full week, and the strike stays on their record for 90 days. And let's be honest, in internet time for a student, 90 days feels like an absolute eternity. A second strike within that same window triggers a 2-week restriction. And a third strike, permanent channel removal, gone. I absolutely love this quote from our source material because it totally reframes the whole system. Enforcement is not only punishment. Think about your student creators for a second. This strike system is actually a built-in educational opportunity. It teaches them platform accountability, helping them recognize exactly where they crossed a line so they can make safer, much more responsible content decisions moving forward.
All right, let's get into Section 5, Practical Classroom Applications. So, how do we actually translate all these community guidelines into our day-to-day teaching? Well, here's your chronological workflow as a science educator. Step 1, before class, you've got to review the source, double-check the accuracy, and scan those thumbnails to make sure they're age-appropriate. Step 2, during class, actively provide that EDSA context we just talked about, and always give a heads up before showing sensitive scientific content. Step 3, for student projects, you're teaching them proper citation and privacy protection. And Step 4, after sharing, your job is to keep an eye on those comments and report any harm or harassment.
To make this incredibly easy to implement, just consider this your mandatory mini digital safety audit. Before you assign a video or ask a student to create one, run it through this quick checklist: accuracy, safety, context, respect, privacy, and platform behavior. Just ask yourself, does this encourage harmful imitation? Does it avoid negative stereotypes? Are my students' identities protected?
And finally, Section 6, Critical Reflection for Educators.
Guidelines give us the safety boundaries, sure, but they definitely don't replace your teaching expertise. I want to pose 3 quick questions to challenge your professional, pedagogical judgment. First up, does the multimedia content you chose actually improve conceptual understanding, or does it merely attract attention? As master's-level educators, we always need to prioritize deep, meaningful scientific learning over simple, flashy engagement.
Second question. Does the content balance scientific realism with learner safety and emotional well-being? This is the tricky boundary. Yes, nature and science can be harsh sometimes, but you have to gauge the age appropriateness and the emotional maturity of your specific classroom before exposing them to intense scientific realities.
And the third question, are your students learning to become responsible producers of digital science content, not just consumers? Because really, that is the ultimate goal here. When they truly understand these guidelines, they aren't just passively watching screens, they are developing into accountable digital citizens who know exactly how to communicate science ethically and responsibly.
So to summarize our main takeaway from today, platform rules and teacher judgment have to work hand in hand. YouTube provides the baseline safety boundaries, the technical framework, if you will. But you, the educator, you're the one who designs the learning purpose, sets the context, and ultimately creates a safe educational learning environment.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Armed with these guidelines, a solid understanding of the EDSA context exception, and your brand new safety checklist, how will you audit your very next digital science lesson? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to use multimedia safely, responsibly, and brilliantly in your digital classroom.